If you have ongoing exposure to controlling people, it's a virtual certainty that you're going to experience blurry boundaries, which is why I've created the extensive online course called This Is Me, Establishing Boundaries with the Controllers in Your Life. There's a link below that will give you all of the details, and I hope that you would find it therapeutic. I'm sure you're familiar with the term covert narcissism. When we talk about a narcissist who has a covert pattern, we're talking about someone who has all of the primary ingredients that go into the making of narcissism: the high need for control, the very self-absorbed style, attitude of entitlement, condescension, manipulation, lack of empathy. But the covert is quite skilled at hiding the fullness of that narcissistic dimension behind a veil of normalcy. And so you don't really see it right up front. Now, there's one huge pattern, though, that tends to go along with the covert narcissist that tips you off as to what you're dealing with, and that is they also, by definition, tend to be quite prone towards passive-aggressive techniques or tactics that they'll use with you. Now, it's important for you to realize that when we talk about passive-aggressive, focus on that word aggression. These are aggressive individuals. Narcissists do not manage their anger well at all. And when we talk about having a sense of aggressiveness, we're talking about them taking care of their frustrations in such a way that's going to be damaging or confusing to you. But then when we put that term passive on the front of it, again, that goes with that covert pattern. That it's just going to they're going to try to make it look like something that is not necessarily is the case. And so passive-aggressive, covert narcissism, it just all goes hand in hand. Now, what I'd like to do is zero in on 12 of the most common passive-aggressive tactics that the covert narcissist will use. And it's going to be so essential for you to know what you're dealing with, because they want you to believe that you're the crazy person when there's some difficulty between you and them. They're consummate gaslighters. They want you to feel confused about the legitimacy of being you. But when you see the pattern for what it is, you'll realize, wait a minute, this is part of the manipulation. So let's get right to it and identify these 12 tactics that the covert narcissist is likely to use with you. Now, the first one, I'm just going to put it under the category of general lifestyle non-cooperation. That's their passive aggressiveness. And when I say lifestyle non-cooperation, I mean things like they procrastinate very easily. They'll tell you they're going to do something and then they don't. Or if they do engage with you in some sort of a project, it's a half-hearted effort, or they can just suddenly be unavailable, or they're constantly tardy, but they always have a great excuse. That non-cooperation is their way of quietly saying, you bug me. That's the aggression. You bother me. You're just a nuisance. But they won't come out and say it. They'll just let their passive behavior do the communication for them. Now, right along with this is number 2, and that is sometimes the covert will say that they want to be helpful, but then they get sidetracked. For example, they may know that you have a particular project coming along, and they'll say, hey, look, I know how to do that. I did that last week. Let me help you out. I'll get back with you. Then they don't get back with you. And then you realize they do that a lot. Make lots of promises to be of assistance, but then when push comes to shove, they're just not there. And again, you can see that the covert element is, it's like, I don't really mean that. I consider you to be somebody that's more of a bother, but I want to try to keep up my veneer of looking good. That's the covert part of the narcissism, and it's part of their passive aggressiveness. Now, a third tactic that they'll use is sometimes you may wind up needing to confront them or to discuss with them some of the difficulties or differences that are there between the two of you. So the third tactic is they can respond to your confrontations with perplexion. For example, if you say, don't you remember we talked about this yesterday, or you had mentioned to me we were going to have thus and such, but it didn't turn out that way. And they may just say something to the effect of, I don't even know what you're talking about, or what do you mean by that? Or where did you come up with an idea like that? Or are you and I even talking about the same pattern? And so they speak in quizzical kinds of ways, and when you try to pin them down, it's like, well, I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree. And again, particularly when they do this in an ongoing kind of way, it's their way of letting me know, don't mess with me. You're not going to get anywhere when you try to confront me. A fourth tactic is the covert narcissist will often tell you what to do via questions. For example, they may say something like, why is this something that bothers you so much? If they're asking you to do something, or why are you showing me so much resistance? Now, what they're saying is, I need you to do what I tell you to do, but instead of being direct, they ask you questions in a way of trying to shame you. Or don't you think we should have included this person in our plans? Or maybe we could have handled it that way. And it's their way of saying, you're so beneath me. I don't like how you do life. That's the aggression. A fifth tactic that they will use is they will constantly play the role of the victim. There are so many times when you're with that covert narcissist that they'll let you know that this person over there didn't manage things well and now they're having to pick up the pieces. Or this person over here just doesn't appreciate the good things that they bring. And you notice they do this over and over, and what they'll do is they complain about being underappreciated by everyone else, and it's their way of expressing the fact that they're frustrated. And then if you say, well, you seem so angry, it's like, no. In fact, if anything, I'm one of the nicest people you ever knew. But their constant victimization it reveals the fact that there's this agitation that they're sitting on from the inside out. Now, this leads directly to number 6, and a sixth tactic that they'll use is they refuse to address conflicts with the person in front of them, but they'll run a hidden smear campaign behind their back as an insider talking to another insider. For example, if you have bothered the narcissist, rather than that narcissist coming directly and say, hey, let's talk, the narcissist may go to a coworker or a friend and say, I don't know what's going on with this person over here. I try everything. And so that what they'll do is they'll gripe to other people about you, and eventually you'll probably hear about it. And then when you confront them about it, it's like, no, that's not what happened. And it allows them to have their frustration, make you look bad, but without any kind of accountability. A seventh tactic is sometimes they'll pay you compliments as a way of also giving you a complaint. Okay? For example, let's say you get a new car, and they may say something like, well, it must be nice getting a new car because I can't afford one. Or it may be that they may say something like, you can be really helpful when you put your mind to it. And it's their way of kind of giving you a backhanded, slap in the face, when in fact they're not really saying nice things. They are, but they're not. It's just their way of throwing a dig in at you. That's the aggressive in a passive kind of way. An eighth way that they might show their passive aggressiveness is sometimes they just don't include you in activities. There might be times when you find out that they went to lunch with someone and you could have been invited, but weren't. Or it may be that they'll just go and do things with friends and have no intention whatsoever to talk with you about what's happening. They just don't include you, and you think, well, but I thought we were a team, or I thought that we were on the same wavelength. It's like, no, I don't even like to include you in things like that. And so many times they just act as if the connection with you is non-existent. Now, another thing that they might do, this would be number 9, and that is they may just brazenly ignore you, and then when you do say something about it, they'll feign innocence. For example, it may be that you finally do say, hey, I might have wanted to join you with this, or I might have wanted to do that. And it's like, oh, well, I thought you were busy. Or I had no idea that you would be interested in something like that. Or I thought you already knew about our plans. And so they'll be very slippery in the way that they engage with you as you try to come to some sort of terms with them. A 10th tactic that they'll use is that sometimes they'll try to hold on to a moral high ground as a way of passing judgment on other individuals, but they make it sound like, it's not passing judgment. For example, if you want to include somebody in a decision-making process, it may be it's like, well, this person, they've made a lot of mistakes in the past, and I just don't feel like I need to connect with them, when in fact, no, that's not the case, or they haven't sat down and talked with that person, or that person, they're a little too shallow for my taste. And so they're constantly letting it be known, people that want to engage with me, they just don't measure up to my standards, and you constantly feel like there's this ongoing judgment that is going to be a part of the equation. An 11th tactic that they'll use is the classic silent treatment. There may be times when there's just a frustration that won't go away, and that narcissistic individual wants to punish you, and so they can become very evasive. They can ghost you, and they know that you want to hear from them, and they won't give you the time of day. They won't return text messages or calls. It's their way of saying, I hold you in disdain, but they're not actually going to say it, but they're just going to let the passive behavior be the communication. And then finally, a 12th tactic that they can use is they can give the appearance of being pleasing and helpful to you, all the while they're holding on to grudges. There are times when it might be like, I'm going to be the nicest person you ever know, but then later on they cash in and they say, all those nice things that I did for you, you're the least appreciative person I've ever met, and finally it comes back out. Now, I know I've run through these rather rapidly, and there are so many more things that I could come up with, but let's go back to that whole notion about covert narcissism, all the control and the manipulation, self-absorption, lack of empathy, and then the passive aggressive. It all fits together. It's their way of keeping up a false front while letting you know that you do not pass muster, you're not a good person. And so you might think, well, should I confront them on this? And my response is, go find a brick wall and bang your head against that. It doesn't work, because they'll pull the passive aggressive with you on that. Once you see the pattern, don't make it your task to reform that passive aggressive covert narcissist, but instead recognize, okay, this is somebody who will not communicate clearly and honestly and in any way, in an accountable kind of way. Therefore, I need to go ahead and decide what my North Star is, and I'm going to stay consistent with what I know is wisest and best. And when they, somehow let it be known in their passive aggressiveness that I don't measure up, it's like, I realize that, but I need to move on. I'm on to you. And when they just roll their eyes, it's like, there's Exhibit A right there. I'll never measure up. I get it, but I'm going to be comfortable with me. I hope that videos such as this can give you some good insight about what you're dealing with, and knowledge is power. And once you're onto it, I'm hoping you can determine, I want to be somebody that is moving in a forward direction. If you've not already hit that subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. Hit the like button, because that helps us on our algorithms. And we'll keep more videos coming in your direction. If you have a need for therapy, for somebody that can help you unpack this, we have a sponsor that can assist you with this. The people at BetterHelp.com is our sponsor, and there's a link below that will take you to their website. And there's a whole host of licensed professional therapists that you could choose from. I would strongly encourage you to take advantage of that if that's a need that you have. We have my online courses, Ready, Set, Connect. This is me, free to be, and they're very extensive with multiple videos, written materials and documents and questions. We have my podcast. We have our website with many articles. So avail yourself to the resources that we have. Okay, passive, aggressive, covert, narcissism, it all fits. It's all a part of a pattern. I'm hoping that you can say, I see it. I'm not going to get pulled in. And I'm going to be a person that is going to be steady. I just lost Gus on that one. And I'm going to be a person that's going to be steady because I want to be a person of peace.